So I'm here with Emily Provance, the 2025 Swarthmore Lecturer, who will be delivering her lecture, The Meaning of Quaker Community, as part of Britain Yearly Meeting 2025, which will be held at Friends House London at the end of May. Emily, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Oh, gladly. My name is Emily Provance. My Quaker membership is at 15th Street Meeting, which is a New York yearly meeting, physically located in New York City. And I'm also an associate of Good News Associates, which is a nonprofit ministry organization that supports non-institutional ministry work.
Okay, fantastic. So can you tell us a bit about how you came to Quakers and your journey with friends?
Absolutely. I was looking for a faith tradition for a long time. I really started a search authentically when I was about 10 years old. And I knew that what I was looking for was a tradition of people who said that God speaks to us all, God cares for us all, and also that is true of people of all faith traditions, that it is not the case that there is one and that's it. And it took a long time, but I definitely found home among Quakers. And around age 27, I walked into my first meeting and was just incredibly welcomed. And I've heard many people say since that it's an experience of homecoming. And that's what it was like for me too. And then what was interesting was my meeting in New York City is part of a dual affiliated yearly meeting, which means that in our same building, we have an unprogrammed, silent, expectant worship kind of meeting. And we also have a programmed pastoral meeting called Manhattan Meeting. We share a space, we share committees, we share social time. And so from the very beginning, it was very, very normal to me that we had different types of Quakers who worshiped differently. And when I started feeling the experience of being called to travel more widely among friends, it was as though that had always been part of the experience of the worldwide community for me, which made for some really beautiful connections.
Okay, amazing. So you touched a bit on your traveling ministry. So it takes you all around the world, engaging with friends from a variety of different backgrounds. Can you share a little about what being a traveling friend involves and what that looks like day to day?
Well, the day to day is never boring. It's a little bit different all the time. Sometimes I'm traveling within my own country. Often I'm traveling, as you said, around the world. And in the year 2025, traveling ministry looks quite different than it might have if we were speaking of, not just 25 years ago, but 100 or 200 years ago, because I'm very often in multiple places at the same time. So I may find myself in a conversation with people in the United States in person. And within the same day, I'm also leading something online that involves friends in Australia. And I'm also working on a committee where I have European friends that I'm working alongside. From a practical point of view, I live out of a backpack. I gave up having a home of my own in January of 2019. So I've been on the road for over 6 years, and I have learned a lot about necessity and hospitality and how much you can learn about a people and about the spirit more generally when you are stepping into someone else's space and learning about their experience of the divine and their way of being people together. So day to day, my connections look a lot like being a circulatory system, carrying ideas and stories and inspiration from one group of people to another all over the world. And I get to pick up a little nourishment every time I do that. And that is an extraordinary thing.
Okay, and can we touch a bit on how, yeah, so how did you make that decision, to start, back in 2019, how was that decision made to start being a traveling friend and sharing that ministry across the world?
The experience of travel goes further back than that. I had started traveling among friends more like 2012 or 2013. And I remember a very early conversation with what we in the US would call an elder, which is more of a spiritual role than the named role of elder in Britain Yearly Meeting. And I told him that I was feeling a need to go and sit in people's living rooms and learn from them. And he asked me, is this travel in the ministry? I said, No, because I'm not preaching, I'm learning. I'm just learning. And he said, I'd like you to think about that again. And pointed me to John Woolman, who has a text in his journal where he talks about traveling among indigenous people and saying specifically that he might learn from them. And he said, if this was travel in the ministry for Woolman, I think it may be for you too. That was very, very early on. I learned an incredible amount from an incredible number of people. But in terms of figuring out what my specific work was meant to be in the world, that took a lot longer because I didn't have a terribly solid model for the kind of work that I do now. When I finally got to 2019, the giving up of the full-time home was actually a financial decision at first. And since that time, a number of other things have happened because of it, but we'll talk more about that in the lecture itself.
Okay, great. So your Swarthmore Lecturer, it's going to explore the meaning of Quaker community, and it's drawing from a wide range of traditions, books of discipline. Can you speak about a bit about how this research came together, and what you hope friends will take from it?
Absolutely. But I do want to start by naming that I don't think it's about exploring Quaker community. I think it's about exploring community. One of the discoveries that I've made along the way of doing the kind of work I do is that we are all part of just innumerable communities all the time, and we're not always aware of it. So we're stepping in and out of neighborhood communities and work communities and faith communities and international communities. And all of this is part of how we're meant to be interdependent in our day-to-day lives. I really feel as though we've been designed to be interdependent. The reason this particular process of research came up for me was because I was experiencing this real pain around people I know who are afraid of other people I know. There are a wide variety of types of Quakers in the world, including people who are very different culturally, theologically, philosophically, and some of them really have genuine trepidation around interacting with each other. And that's a hard thing to hold because I've been in their living rooms and played with their dogs, and I know the goodness of all of these different kinds of people. And I watch things like what's happening. I've just come from the West Bank a couple of days ago, watching other types of war in Africa and other places and thinking there has to be a better way for humans to exist with each other. So when I was asked to talk about community, I thought, I know that friends must know something about this, but it doesn't make any sense that I as an individual would know, nor does it make any sense that just friends in Britain or just friends in East Africa or just friends back in New York would know the answers for how we live as humanity around the world. That doesn't seem possible. If we really believe in sense of the meeting, is it not the case that we would have a collective worldwide sense of the meeting about how to live together as humanity? So that was the impetus of the project. And I tried very hard to imagine that I was clerking a giant business meeting all around the world, and that each of the texts of the 38 English language books of discipline currently in use, plus a bunch of our historical texts, I went back to about 15 of those, and I went back through the entire Bible. And I looked for answers for how are we called to live in community, and found what I think is a pretty strong sense of the meeting, and tested that with some folks and things like that. The lecture will be the story of the process of how that unfolded, and I'll share some of it, but not all of it, because I ended up with a set of 92 minutes, what I'm calling minutes. And what I found in those minutes, even though I was the one who took the notes and wrote the things and all of that, the content continues to surprise me every time I go back and look, because it really is the wisdom drawn from an enormously diverse group of friends all around the world. And I think that when we're in a sense of the meeting process, the differences between friends is an asset. It's a real strength, and something wonderful has the potential to come out of that.
Okay, fantastic. And finally, what's one thing you're especially looking forward to sharing with friends in your lecture?
So again, that's tricky. 92 minutes, but I think that the lecture itself will touch on the first of the 92, and it's actually my favorite. And it has to do with why we engage with people who think differently than we do, and what the spiritual power is in that act. And this has been so influential in my day-to-day life, interacting with people who think differently than I, both among Quakers, but then also in the world more generally. The vulnerability and the risk that sometimes happens when you walk into a space with strangers, and yet God's extraordinary presence and how it is manifested through those people in all of these different places has just taught me over and over and over again about what humanity is and can do. And that's something that I very much look forward to sharing.
Oh, thank you, Emily. We're all looking forward to hearing the lecture at the end of May. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Aled.